This is Caribbean Vibes.
political leader and the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, political leader of the Tobago Council, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestin, Chairman of the Tobago Council, Mr. Stanford Calendar, General Secretary of the Tobago Council, Ms. Yolanda George, all other executive members of the Tobago Council, candidate for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy, and candidate for Tobago West, Mrs. Shamfa Kojo, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Ansel Dennis, all other assemblymen and councillors, constituencies both East and West, executive members, all other invited guests, good evening. All right, so I sense that people had a long day today. So what I want you to do is to watch the person next to you, either on your right or your left, and tell them you look lovely. All right. And in going forward, I want you, in affirmation to what I say, when I say okay, you say all right. And when I say all right, you say okay, okay? All right? So we're going to have ourselves a victory on August the 10th, okay? And we are going to put our X by the balize for all our candidates, okay? And we are all going to come out in our numbers and tell our friends and family and Tanti and Neden to come out and vote for the PNM, okay? All right, that's what we're talking about. I like what I hear in here, man. This evening, our first speaker is a young man who has been breaking boundaries throughout his political career. He's a man of many talents, yet he still remains grounded as he calls himself a servant of the people. He has been the youngest deputy presiding officer and now the youngest ever Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. Help me welcome to the stage the Honorable Ansel Dennis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kern Johnson, Master of Ceremonies. Of course, permit me to recognize the Honorable Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and the political leader of the People's National Movement, and the man who will remain Prime Minister after August 10th this year, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Of course, the first female political leader of the Tobago Council of the People's National Movement, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestin, Chairman of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Mr. Stanford Calendar, both our distinguished candidates for the constituencies of Tobago East and Tobago West, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy and Ms. Shamfa Kojo, other members of the Tobago House of Assembly, executive members of the Tobago Council of the PNM, and of course, fellow PNM people. How are you feeling? This evening I will not be too long because I simply want to speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago as I would have spoken to the people of Tobago a couple nights ago. Because this election, as I've been saying all along, is firstly about electing somebody to lead this country or to lead the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, as I stand here, I reflected and my mind went back to a few years ago in 2012, where I spoke in this very place, in this very auditorium, when the People's National Movement here in Tobago had a series of political meetings, and the theme was feeling the pain, for those of you who remember. And of course, back then, the people of Tobago, and the Tobago House of Assembly more specifically, we were indeed feeling the pain due to bad leadership, due to corruption, due to abuse by the then People's Partnership government led by Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And therefore, as I reflect on that, it caused me to realize that this country experienced a significant transition after September in 2015, because the kind of leadership provided by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley and his team was miles apart from what was provided to this country before. And therefore, I simply want to say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago tonight to reflect, do some serious introspection and reflection, and take your mind back to the period 2010 to 2015, when every single Monday morning there was a scandal in the government of Trinidad and Tobago, when almost every night on the news it was either some minister of government charged for some offense, or some breaking story about corruption in some agency or some ministry of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, I think it was last night, I saw an article that gave me not even a gentle reminder, but a firm reminder of what transpired back then. Because there was an agency which pillaged over $500 million, and that is $500 million of taxpayers' money. And therefore, while the wheels of justice in this country may not roll as fast as we would like, as a Trinidad and Tobago citizen, and as a young man of this country, I am pleased that finally the people of Trinidad and Tobago will see some justice for what was done to us by the last government. And therefore, as we speak, I am sure that many former members of that cabinet of the People's Partnership government, and even some UNC candidates that are expecting to face the polls on August 10th, I am sure some of them spent significant periods of time in the toilet over the last couple of days. Because I can assure you, the wheels of justice will turn, and there are those who would be held responsible for the kind of corruption and the kind of abuse that took place in this country during that period. But of course, in 2015, we had an opportunity to change government. And we elected here in Tobago two brilliant young women, Ariana Webster in the east and Shamfa Kojo in the west. And we did not only send them to Parliament, but we sent them to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Because of course the PDP is saying, elect their two candidates and send them to the Parliament. But I want to say to you that there are only two parties that have a chance of forming the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is the People's National Movement, or the United National Congress, based on the amount of candidates they have in this election. And therefore the PDP is disqualified. And therefore we have one choice, which is the right choice. Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. And I realize of late they are using a number of B words to refer to him. And therefore I want to refer to my Prime Minister as a bright man, a man who has been around for some time, over 30 years in the political arena, who has served with distinction. And I want to qualify my statement when I say that the man is bright, because of course in the field of academics, he has achieved the pinnacle by acquiring a PhD. And therefore, we have the option of either selecting this bright Tobagonian to continue to lead the country, and I want to use a B word to describe the other option, the blunder woman. Because I'm saying from 2010 to 2015, it was misstep after misstep, blunder after blunder, she presided over the most corrupt government that the Caribbean has ever seen. And therefore, we have an opportunity to ensure that decent leadership, to ensure that sound leadership, to ensure that quality governance continues in this country. And therefore, I am urging all of us to go out to the polls on August the 10th and ensure that you encourage your family, your friends, your co-workers, and tell them under no circumstances should we return to the kind of abuse and the kind of corruption that we had in 2010 to 2015. But we must ensure that we continue to have a PNM government led by Dr. Keith Rowley in Trinidad that will continue to collaborate with the Tobago House of Assembly here in Tobago so that we can continue to have the kind of accelerated development that we have seen over the last 5 years. And therefore, in closing, I want to suggest to us that it's not even about the right choice, but it's about the only choice. And I'm saying the only choice for governance of this country at this time is the PNM government led by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. And therefore, when we would have done the correct thing, which is to ensure that the People's National Movement return to governance, then we can all come back sometime after the election on August 10th and join together in one great loud voice across Trinidad and Tobago and say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we have prevailed. PNM coming! PNM coming! PNM coming!
Now, when I hear young men speak like that, I feel good to know that our future is in good hands. Let's put it together one more time for Mr. Ansel Dennis. Our next speaker is someone who is no stranger to politics. She has represented Tobago on the level of the Tobago House of Assembly, and she has also represented the country nationally, being an ambassador. Coming out of Tobago, flying that banner high and being an example to other young, intelligent persons who aspire to the ambassador status. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to the podium someone who, for the first time ever, became the first female political leader of the Tobago Council of the PNM. I bring someone to the podium who is calm and resolute, and though may appear still, as the saying goes, still waters run deep. So help me to welcome someone who is going to add some stability to this whole chaos of election that we have happening now. Someone who will bring a measure of calm in the midst of the storm. Help me welcome a lady with a strong voice and a calm disposition, political leader of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kern Johnson. Permit me to recognize in our midst this evening political leader of the People's National Movement and the next Prime Minister for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Chairman of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Mr. Stanford Callender. General Secretary of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Ms. Yolanda George. All other members of the Tobago Council, Chief Secretary Ansel Dennis, all assemblymen and councillors who are in our midst, and I must recognize my former boss and minister with responsibilities for CARICOM and Foreign Affairs, representatives from the constituencies, both east and west, and all of the executive members who have come from far and near to be a part of this evening's proceedings. And last but by no means least, our candidate for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy, and of course our candidate for Tobago West, Ms. Shamfa Ashaki Kojo. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, residents of Tobago, members of the constituencies of Tobago East and West, it gives me great pleasure to stand here in support of our two candidates in this election, our two standard bearers who have done us very proud over the last 5 years, Ms. Shamfa Kojo for Tobago West and Ms. Ayana Webster-Roy for Tobago East. Both Shamfa and Ayana represents the PNM Tobago's investment in youth and more so its commitment to gender equality. I am too a product of that investment, which is a demonstration of how focused we are as PNM in developing our human capital as well as Tobago and its people. We have a commitment to renew, to revitalize, and to continue the development journey that we all have been engaged in since over the last 64 years. And so on August 10th, 2020, those of us who are 18 years and over and are registered to vote, I am saying to you this evening that we all have a chance to determine which of all the teams and the parties put forward in this election is the right choice to steer this country for the next 5 years and to build on a platform for a future. That is what this election is all about. I am saying this evening that all of us have a chance to determine which party is best poised to take us safely through this COVID-19 pandemic or epidemic or whatever you care to call it, and to take the necessary actions that would keep us all safe and at a place of comfort. And as we have seen, the whole world struggles to cope with this unprecedented pandemic. But here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a lot to be thankful for. We have leadership world class and a government conscientious approach to investing in our healthcare systems and delivery. And of course, all of this is piloted by the People's National Movement Administration. And so, ladies and gentlemen, members of the listening public, the choice has always been clear. And that is, when it comes to the management of this country, this organization called the People's National Movement is the best vehicle through which a focused development path has been etched and is implemented. And so those who are out there who are saying that you should vote for a Tobago-based party to go to Trinidad, I wish to posit tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that the Tobago Council of the PNM is an autonomous body. But more than that, in the overall scheme of national development, Tobago needs to ensure that there is a strategic arrangement which will allow us to sit at the table where the decisions are made. And moreover, we as Tobagonians need to ensure that the arrangement is with a tried and tested organization, an organization which is stable, an organization which is credible, and which has a track record of delivery of service, and most importantly, a concern for all of us. And the only organization I see in this landscape of Trinidad and Tobago is the People's National Movement, led by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley in Trinidad and in Tobago. I want to remind all of you that we have been very transparent in all of our undertakings. We have not made any backdoor deals whatsoever. We have stood the test of time for integrity. We have ensured that we have a focused approach to the development of Tobago, and more so a focused approach to national development. But I cannot say that for the rest of the parties who are coming to you asking for your vote in this election. I want to say to all of us who are listening that those people in black are proxies for the arrangements, and so we are warning you. I am warning all of us who can vote, those of you who are 18 years and over, those of you who are middle-aged, those of you who are senior citizens, to keep away from that arrangement. If you were listening intently, you would have by now heard the plan of action from the leader of the PDP. He has said it on countless occasions that the 2 Tobago seats will be used as negotiation tools. So what does that really mean for all of us? His intent is to take our seats and to hand them over to the UNC in Trinidad and to repeat once again the same kind of chaos that we have experienced on this island in 2010 to 2015. You would recall, all of us here in Tobago, that every major developmental initiative requiring the assistance or the cooperation with the central government was abandoned. We even went as far as to take them to court, ladies and gentlemen. And I am saying to all of you tonight, we don't want a repeat of that in 2020. And so I urge all of you to vote solidly and only for the PNM. If you were listening, you would have heard the PDP leader speak on many occasions of secession. When I heard of it on the first occasion, I thought that it was an error. Then when I heard of it on the second occasion, I said to myself, this has to be deliberate, because all of us know the saying which goes, once a mistake and twice a habit. Not so. But the further question is, ladies and gentlemen, how could this man in black be so blatant to foist his own agenda on the people of Tobago? Over the last 5 years, there was a particular process which saw all of us coming together to determine what we want for Tobago. I was a part of the committee. I sat in many of the meetings. You, the people of Tobago, sat in some of those meetings. And eventually, we produced a bill which has since been sent to Trinidad. How then can this man in black be so bold as to suggest publicly that he intends to derail that process and disregard all that we have said in terms of self-determination for Tobago? But more later, I found out that this was a part of the negotiation arrangements. Bring your 2 seats and come. And so, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, we have all been warned. You are not to be fooled by the rough drive that is taking place. So all of you who are excited at this moment, please know that do not accept goods for which you do not know where it has come from. Those sheets of galvanized represents ties, and it ties you into an arrangement that could never be beneficial for any of us or even for the development of this island. Ladies and gentlemen, we have benefited tremendously from an arrangement which says PNM Trinidad and PNM Tobago. We have been living a very, very comfortable life in Tobago and a very high standard of living at that. Look at how we have been able to treat with the air bridge, the air and the sea bridge over the years. And I'm sure you would heard from our representatives in the cabinet and of course Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley on how we intend to treat further with the sea bridge. And of course I wish to remind you that all of this is PNM style. And so with everything that has happened with the delivery of fast service and the betterment and improvement of our sea bridge going forward has been orchestrated, implemented and developed by the People's National Movement over the years. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have to check the facts. I know that facts sometimes can be stubborn things, but they are things which, of course, cannot be blanked. Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen how we have delivered in 5 short years in terms of delivering police stations in Roxborough, an improved healthcare delivery service up there in Roxborough, Mariah Health Center. Shamfa will speak to you about the Dwight York Stadium, ladies and gentlemen. How WASA has worked with the Tobago House of Assembly to desilt the Hillsborough Dam, and of course the impending start of the new airport terminal. And so what I am referencing to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, what I am indicating to all of you is that the arrangement where we had central government in Trinidad, PNM, and of course a Tobago-controlled PNM administration has benefited all of us to date. And so the Chief Secretary and I met with the UDICOT chairman, and we were going through the list of projects to be delivered to the Tobago public over the next several months. And we have over 25 projects on that sheet to be delivered. And that, of course, is another collaboration between central government and the Tobago House of Assembly, because UDICOT is under the ambit of the office of the Prime Minister, and we have Ayanna Webster-Roy in that office, as well as our Prime Minister leading that charge. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am using this opportunity to remind you that we have to do the analysis. What are we saying on our platform? But more than that, how have we delivered over the last 5 years to your benefit? How has the PNM delivered to the people of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago over the last 64 years? We have developed your space. We have been very transparent, and we are very focused on continuing the development of Tobago going forward. I wish to speak specifically to the boys on the block in Roxborough, in the electoral district of Roxborough-Dulaford, and to let you know that representation is not solely about appealing to your social need of purchasing alcohol or giving you two cases of Carib and stopping by once in a blue moon just to say hi, and then you pop back to Trinidad. Representation is more than that. You have to ensure that the person who is coming to you would be able to sit where the decisions are made. You have to know that the person that you are selecting to represent you must be able to articulate on your behalf in Parliament. And we have seen that from Ayanna Webster-Roy. She has brought back to us quite a lot of goodies. If I am to do the math, if I am to do the arithmetic, over $2 billion has been spent in Tobago since we have had representation from our 2 candidates. And so, ladies and gentlemen, members, residents in the electoral district of Roxborough-Dulaford, and in particular boys on the block, Ayanna Webster-Roy is the best choice to represent all of us going forward in Tobago East. I want to make the point, ladies and gentlemen, that when Ayanna Webster-Roy was around in Roxborough in Tobago East, giving out hampers, talking to people and asking what are your particular needs, going to Trinidad to represent you in Parliament and in Cabinet, where was Watson Duke during the COVID-19 lockdown? I heard his constituents crying out for representation. And so while he was relaxing in Trinidad, the central government, through our representatives, and of course the Tobago House of Assembly, cooperated to develop appropriate health policies and to ensure that we have a ready flow of economic and technical resources to aid the Tobago House of Assembly. We had a challenge here, and I picked up the phone after talking to the Secretary of Finance, and I indicated to the political leader then, we need some additional funds to treat with COVID. And right away he said to me, call the Minister of Finance. And after having that discussion, the Minister of Finance was able to release funding to us to assist us with our COVID economic recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, before I take my seat, I want to make the point that Ayanna Webster Roy and Shamfa Kajo have both carried themselves with dignity. They have carried themselves with pride, real Tobago pride, during their stint in Parliament. And so as your political leader, and I speak on behalf of members of the executive of the People's National Movement Tobago Council, we would ensure that they go down to Trinidad and continue to represent all of us here in Tobago going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, the People's National Movement continues to be the right choice. I mentioned earlier about the autonomy bill for Tobago, and in that arrangement, although the bill has not yet gone to Parliament, we have been able to pull out different pieces of that bill to treat with our pressing needs in Tobago. And the Secretary of Finance can say to you that at this point in time, we are able to borrow, we are able to now raise over $300 million bond to finance our development programs going forward. PNM style, ladies and gentlemen. Vote Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Support our two candidates, Ayanna Webster Roy and, of course, Shamfa Kajo, going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, your PNM central government and your PNM-led THA continue to demonstrate our commitment to Tobago's development in real and, of course, tangible ways. Because we have done so in the past, we will continue to do so in the future, and we seek your support going forward. Our future is too important. Our future is too bright. There is too much at stake to give any chance to any other candidate in this election. We have put forward in our manifesto a number of different plans. We want to ensure that there is an enhanced tourism product going forward. And that is why I am appealing to all of us to vote the PNM so that our airport project can continue. I have said it before, when I was the secretary with responsibilities for tourism and transportation, we tried to get the other party to see the time of day where Tobago needs an airport in order to move the development of tourism forward. And all they could have given us in that time was an upgrade in the tune of about $44 million. And today, with our Prime Minister and his representatives in Cabinet, they have secured over $1.2 billion to ensure that our airport is going forward. We are saying to you in our manifesto that we want an enhanced delivery of service, not only for the people in Tobago East, but for the people of Tobago West as well. We have to be able to treat with our agriculture. We have to be able to treat with our transportation needs. And we spoke earlier about a tourism hub, about a transport hub for Roxborough going forward. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have set out quite a number of different initiatives for our young people, for not so young people, in our manifesto, which of course will be launched soon. And so as I take my seat, I appeal to each and every one of you that we are the right choice. Ayanna Webster Roy in Tobago East is the right choice to continue the development in Tobago East. Shamfa Ashaki Kajo is the right choice to continue the development in Tobago West. And of course, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley is the right choice to continue the development of this island and this country. And so I urge all of you to go out solidly and to vote only for the People's National Movement on August 10th, 2020. I thank you. And as we all say in unison and in fine style, whenever we gather together as a people, great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. We will and always will prevail. I thank you.
PNM coming. PNM coming. PNM coming.
Thank you to our political leader, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine. For those who are out there saying that the PNM and do nothing, I hope you had your pen and your papers and you were jotting it down so you could let them know point by point what we have done, what we are doing, and what we will continue to do. I want to let you all know that when you change your relationship status, you're not too sure what you will end up with. We're not going to change our relationship status and end up in an entanglement. We say no entanglement. Say it with me. No entanglement. All right. And as we continue, I want to bring to the podium someone who has been referred to by the opposition by the following quote, Mary had a little lamb. I want to continue the rest of that statement that says, and its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, that lamb was sure to go. Now, as a vet, for your fleece to be white as snow, you have to take good care of that lamb. And so, it is indicative that Ayanna Webster Roy has taken good care of those persons in Tobago East. And the fact that the lamb continues to follow indicates that she's a great leader. Help me to welcome to the stage Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy.
PNM coming. PNM coming. PNM coming.
Red Army, how we feeling? Tobago East, how we feeling? Tobago West, you feeling as good as Tobago East? Nice, nice, nice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Kern Johnson. Permit me to recognize political leader and Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, political leader, Tobago Council, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine, Chairman of the Tobago Council, Mr. Stanford Callender, General Secretary of the Tobago Council, Ms. Yolanda George, all executive members of the Tobago Council, my sister in service and in battle, the Honorable Shamfa Kojo, candidate for Tobago West, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Honorable Ansel Dennis, all other assemblymen and councillors, constituents of both Tobago East and West, the beautiful people of Trinidad and Tobago, looking on, again, my fellow citizens, I bid you all a very good evening. I came across a saying once and it said, wise men plant trees under whose shade they will never sit. And I started off with this quote because it reminds me of my political leader and Prime Minister. It reminds me of the cabinet that I was fortunate to be a part of. Because this Prime Minister, this administration, this government, this PNM team, the right choice, would have invested a whole lot of energy, effort, love, and resources into the children of Trinidad and Tobago, not for today, but for tomorrow. We would have invested into the lives of not those of today, but we would have invested in securing the future leaders of Trinidad and Tobago, those who would come tomorrow. We were wise. We would have planted trees under whose shade we know we may never ever sit. Brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, I want to start off my discourse by focusing on the work we would have done for our women and our children, the most vulnerable in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm proud to note that despite the fact that we would have had to work with reduced revenues, that Trinidad and Tobago, our government, under the leadership of Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, our cabinet would have invested over $100 million just in the Gender Affairs Division of the Office of the Prime Minister. Now, ladies and gentlemen, some persons were arguing that the Gender Affairs should have been a ministry on its own. But where else, what better place than to place the people, the women of our nation, and under the highest office, the Prime Minister, the leader of the executive. That women of Trinidad and Tobago, that girls of Trinidad and Tobago demonstrated our government's commitment to our women, to our children, to our most vulnerable. We recognize that violence against women and girls in Trinidad and Tobago is a real issue, and we made a concerted effort as a team to invest in public education and sensitization. We would have gone out to every community in Trinidad and Tobago, building awareness to ensure that our women and our girls are valued, nurtured, and protected. Some leaders of some political parties can't make that boast or that claim. Our Tobago Prime Minister, your Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, as the head of the cabinet, ensure that we receive the resources to go out and empower our communities, our women and our girls, so that they are able to live lives of value. We would have implemented an initiative called the Barbershop Initiative, because we recognize that if men are part of the problem, they must be part of the solution. Through our Barbershop Initiative, we would have allowed the men and boys in our communities to find a safe space where they could sit together, talk together, and dissect those toxic cultural norms that help to perpetuate violence against women and girls. We allowed our men and boys to sit together and work together and collaborate together to address those negative norms and values that continue to help them abuse our women and girls. And we saw the results. We saw the results when, through the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, some police youth clubs adopted the Barbershop Initiative and used it as an education tool in our communities. That shows that the programs, the initiatives coming out of the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, had an impact on our communities, on our societies, in helping to foster the change that we want to see in Trinidad and Tobago. That, if nothing else, makes us the right choice. We very early on, after consultation, laid in our Parliament as a green paper the National Policy on Gender and Development, and used this policy to guide the work of the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. Added to that, we continue the public education and sensitization through the Shades of I-She community play. We brought that play to almost every community in Trinidad, as well as Tobago West and Tobago East, where we brought our communities together. Let them look at the play. Let them see how family violence could impact our society. And after education, through entertainment, we had frank, open discussion, provoking discourse around family violence and how we could address it in Trinidad and Tobago. We were not lazy. We were not negligent. We understand that for our society to grow, our women must feel valued. Our women must feel protected. Our women and children must be nurtured. So we made the investment. Brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, when we recognized that women were coming into our communities, and when we recognized that human trafficking was becoming a real issue, we partnered with a company in the oil industry to have a project called the Project Sarah, where we are safeguarding all humans against trafficking. Because we understand, even though you come into a space, even though you are not a citizen, if you come here as a woman vulnerable, it is our duty to protect you. It is our duty to fight to ensure that your rights are nurtured and protected. And we did that. Your PNM administration did that. If nothing else, that makes us the right choice. My brothers and sisters listening on, we were very committed to our nation's boys and our nation's girls. And that is why we would have rolled out the nation's first national child policy. And in rolling out that child policy, we would have looked at how could we collaborate across all sectors to ensure our boys and girls understand their rights and they understand the responsibilities that go along with those rights. That is why it wasn't by mistake. We would have invested in producing over 10,000 child rights booklets and distributed it to schools and to children in Trinidad and Tobago. That is why your government would have invested in developing a workbook to assist the student support services, to teach boys and girls in first form about understanding the signs of abuse and understanding how they could address abuse from their level, and understanding how we collectively could help to end the culture of abuse in our country. Some people don't like when we speak about it, but to end something that is dangerous, you have to first accept it and work towards it. And that is what your government did. That is what your Prime Minister, your cabinet did for you, the young children of Trinidad and Tobago. We made the investment. Despite we had less to work with, we did more. And I'm forever proud of the work that we would have accomplished under the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. We would have trained over 100 coaches and bus drivers, helping them as duty bearers to understand the signs of abuse and be able to assist those boys and girls who they interact with to overcome abuse. We know the horror stories. We hear of little girls who leave to go to school and never get there. We know of girls and boys who leave and go to school and come back home abused, and they have no one to talk to. But by training our bus drivers, training our coaches, they know that they have someone who they could turn to, a compassionate ear, someone who could point them in the direction of help, and that is what we have been doing as your government to help to protect our nation's children. For those boys and girls who are unfortunate not to live in a family environment, who don't have the opportunity to live with their mother and their father, but who would have to live in a community residence, who would have to live in a children's home, we made the investment despite revenues were down, so that every single child in a children's home would have financial assistance. That is a first. Our payment per child system introduced under your government, it was revolutionary. It was the first time in the history of Trinidad and Tobago that every single children's home would have received financial assistance to ensure the psychosocial development of the boys and girls in their charge. If nothing else, that makes us the right choice, Trinidad and Tobago. When we recognize that there was a need to provide a facility for young men who needed reintegration back into society after exiting one of our community residences, we established the first male transition home in Trinidad and Tobago. That facility has helped a number of young men in our country to be able to go back out into society and become meaningful contributors to our national development. That, if nothing else, makes us the right choice. Trinidad and Tobago, your government, under the leadership of Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, as the head of the cabinet, would have ensured that our nation's most vulnerable receive the necessary attention so that together we could help to shape the type of society we want and help to build a better Trinidad and Tobago. We have made the investment, we have put in the work, we have made the commitment to you, and we continue doing it after August 10th, 2020, because We know that for our nation to advance, to grow, and to develop, we must make the investment in our people. That is one of the key priority areas in our Vision 2030, and we would have worked that priority area to ensure that at the end of the day, every citizen in Trinidad and Tobago will have the opportunity to go on to help to develop and to boost our economy and our society. We have invested in our women and our children. In terms of the laws, we would have ensured that in terms of protecting our women and children, we took a holistic stance. So we went into the parliaments and we enacted laws to protect our vulnerable boys and girls. We ended child marriage. We ended child marriage after years. After years of a culture where little girls were exploited by older men, we ended child marriage to protect the virtue of our young girls and even those young men who would have fallen victim. We amended the Domestic Violence Act because we recognize that in order to further protect our women and our girls who are primary victims, we have to put the laws in place, and your government did that. We amended laws to ensure greater penalties for sexual perpetrators. We amended laws to ensure that anybody who violates a woman or child would face the full brunt of the law and that the victim would be able to get some kind of redress. Your government did that. Your PNM cabinet did that with the support of all our members of parliament on the government bench. We worked for our nation's most vulnerable. So as I stand here tonight and I celebrate what we would have done for women and children under the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs, I could say without fear of contradiction, we did more with less. Brothers and sisters of Tobago and brothers and sisters of Tobago East, your government, despite the backlash, despite the cries of those who sat on the other side of us, would have invested in the development of Tobago, and in particular, Tobago East. So Tobago East people, I want you to big up for yourself a little bit. I am proud, I am grateful that I am the sitting member of parliament, that I am the MP who sat alongside great people in the parliament on the government bench who ensured that the people of Tobago East, for the first time, would have a hospital, so we don't have to travel all the way to Signal Hill. I remember when I was having my son, I went into labor early in the morning. I was doubting myself, got to the health center in Roxborough. The nurse examined me. She said, "What you doing here? Head straight up the fort." And on my way up the fort, I only praying, "God, Father, let me make it in time." Ladies of Roxborough, Betsy Soap, Dalaford, Charleville, Speyside, the days for squeezing the legs and praying we make it on time would soon be over. That particular achievement is near and dear to my heart because I've lived it just like many of you ladies of Tobago East. I went through the uncertainty of knowing if I would get to the hospital on time. So when I advocated, it was on behalf of all of us, and we are seeing the fruits of the hard work. I remember as a little girl running up Station Hill to go to the police youth club meetings, and then coming back home to Tobago, seeing where our nurses' quarters was transformed into a temporary police station, and wondering, would the police station, the new police station for Roxborough, become a reality? Would the people of Roxborough be able to boast again that we are indeed the second town of Tobago with a state-of-the-art police station? People of Tobago East, people of Roxborough, your Tobago-born Prime Minister made that a reality. If nothing else, that makes us the right choice. I remember walking Charleville and walking in neighboring communities or Speyside. I remember interacting with fishermen in communities around Tobago East. And I remember the times when fishermen came to see me at the office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services Tobago, talking about falling prey to pirates on the open seas, talking about people coming into our territorial waters and taking our catch. And I remember having discussions with the Minister of National Security. I remember putting it to our Prime Minister and asking for his support for us to have greater border patrols. And I felt proud as a Tobago East woman when the Honorable Stuart Young came to Charlottesville and launched 2 high-speed interceptors for the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. And as a resident of Tobago East, the pride built when on my way to Castara one day to deliver hampers to constituents, I saw the Coast Guard patrolling our waters. I took a video and I said, performance beats all talk, because we delivered. That, ladies and gentlemen, if nothing else, makes us the right choice. I remember sitting in the conference room at the office of the Prime Minister's Central Administrative Services Tobago, meeting with service providers, meeting with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, meeting with the Fire Service, meeting with TNTEC. And I remember at one of those fateful meetings, one of the senior fire officers said, we have a shortage of manpower in Tobago. Most times the training occurs in Trinidad. And most time when we take officers from Trinidad, they don't stay because their families are in Trinidad, they want to return home. And I said, how could we solve that problem? He said, posture training in Tobago. Let us train our people on our island and they will stay right here. I am proud as a Tobago East woman. I am proud as a daughter of Roxborough of the fact that we were able to train fire service recruits right here in Tobago and in Tobago East. That was done through collaboration. The generosity of the Secretary in the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, who allowed us to use the Argyle Community Center as training base, and the work of the Ministry of National Security. We saw a batch of recruits passing out from that training program in Tobago. Tobagonians trained in Tobago for the benefit of all of Tobago. That, ladies and gentlemen, that, brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, makes us the right choice. I am proud of the fact that sitting alongside hard-working ministers in the cabinet, sitting alongside my sister Shamfa Kojo, working in collaboration with my counterpart in the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development, we were able to bring to the children of Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular Tobago, the Children's Authority. Now, some people don't understand how important that is. You see, as an elected representative, I have the opportunity to interact with hundreds, if not thousands of persons constantly, if not through roving office days, visits to my office, or through my Facebook page. I get to interact with hundreds and if not thousands of people. And whether we like it or not, the issue of child abuse is real in our little island of Tobago. So that's why it was so important for us to ensure we brought the Children's Authority over to Tobago to ensure that our little boys and our little girls get the full protection of the state. We didn't only bring an administrative office, we also brought an assessment center. Ladies and gentlemen, if nothing else, that makes us the right choice. So, as I close, I want to encourage you all to go out and vote on August 10th. Make the right choice. Vote for the People's National Movement. And together we could all say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall always say daylight. Thank you.
A woman of color and integrity. Yes. Tobago East PNM candidate, she ready. A woman of merit, a visionary, is the best choice that they ever made for me. A woman of substance, exceptional class.
All All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy. You could hear the passion in her voice as she's really about the people. And she has been working hard and will continue to work hard when we put her back as the next Member of Parliament for Tobago East on August the 10th. Our next speaker is someone who is passionate about young people. If you're young at age and you're young at heart, she's also passionate about you. She has done this and she has shown this passion with programs such as LEAP, 40 Under 40, and the Empower TT program, which are all geared towards helping young persons, giving them the guidance that they need so that they can make informed decisions. In 2015, she brought to life the words, read and ready. We read and we ready. And this year, she has been given a title, Fiery Fox. Well, we want to let you all know that this Fiery Fox is sly enough to see past all the distractions that you all put in away in Tobago West, and cunning enough to go out there, and she will continue to do the good work that she has done in the past and the work that she will continue to do in the future. And you will continue as we go forward, as we support Ayanna Webster, Ms. Shamfa Kojo, on August the 10th. So put your hands together and help me welcome to the stage Ms. Shamfa Firefox Kojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me to recognize in our presence our political leader of the People's National Movement and Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. Our political leader and leader of Tobago Affairs, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine. The Chairman of the Tobago Council, Mr. Stanford Callender. Our Chief Secretary, Mr. Ansel Dennis, members of the party's executive, officers of this great party, members, friends, and supporters of the PNM family, members of the media, fellow citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, a hearty good evening. It is indeed a pleasure and a distinct privilege for me to stand before you this evening as we continue our national development journey and our crusade for a more prosperous future for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I am Shamfa Shaki Kojo, your candidate for the Tobago West seat. Your voice, your servant leader, and last but not least, a PNM standard bearer. This year, like every other year, this election, like every other election, the People's National Movement is proud to contest every single seat in every constituency. And as simple as that seems, brothers and sisters, there is no other party in this country that can boast about that. So put your hands together for the People's National Movement. We are not a political party in the narrow sense of the word, but rather we are a rally for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, coming together, working hand in hand for the common good, one common goal, and the realization of a common vision. Whether you like our party or not, whether you support us or not, it is undisputed that the PNM has and always will stand in the gap for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We are a national party, catering to every section of the electorate and our society, dedicated to improving the lives for not just some, but for all of us, all our citizens, despite color, creed, race, financial background, or geographical location. And that, brothers and sisters, is the essence of the People's National Movement. Our Chief Secretary would have mentioned when we came into power in 2015, we came to you seeking your support, seeking your hand in partnership, asking you to join us on a journey. We asked you to believe, and we asked you to let's do this together. We asked you to believe because we know we will come in on the heels of the most oppressive and atrocious government in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, and that would call for hope, confidence, courage, and hope to bring us out of the dark doldrums of despair that we had found ourselves in. We asked you to work with us, to let's do this together, because we understood the enormity of the task and that it would take everybody, all hands on deck, to restore order, to regain honor, and to create a brighter future for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we assumed office in 2015. Institutions denigrated, public servants emasculated, the stench of corruption reeked from every nook and cranny of this country. We were a lawless state. Some people called Trinidad and Tobago ground zero, but I think we can safely say that we were at our all-time low, with state enterprises deep in debt. We were owing loans left, right, and center. Our opponents looked on, and some of them were hoping and expecting us to fail, hoping that we would end up like Barbados in the hand of the IMF. When Mia Mottley assumed duties as Prime Minister of Barbados, she had to send home thousands of public servants. She had to stop a number of social programs, and she found herself under IMF Structural Adjustment Program. Brothers and sisters, we did not have to suffer the same fate because of intelligent leadership and prudent management from our Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. We could have chosen to kick the can down the road and continue the spending and the feeding frenzy, but we decided to readjust our lifestyle and to give ourselves our own medicines and to deal with strengthening our economy so that we can maintain a proper standard of living for the people of our country, more specifically the young people and the little children. These kinds of circumstances call for intelligent leadership, patience, sobriety, experience, integrity, dexterity, selflessness, and dedication. That called for a leader that stood up for what is right, and we found that in Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. So as a government, we made the hard decisions. We took the unpopular and harsh actions. We started by cutting back Christmas parties, unnecessary travel. We reviewed and revised the social programs, making sure that help got into the hands of those who needed it most. We put an end to different state entities and operations that no longer benefited the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Then that was compounded with very low energy prices, and then came COVID. For many of us, these years had been some of our most trying years. It had been some rough years, but we had to do what we had to do for the sustenance of our people, and most importantly for the welfare of our youth. The media bashed us. Naysayers trampled on us, and some of our very own left us. But this is the sacrifice we have to make each and every day to achieve a stable economy, to maintain a decent standard of living for all our citizens. We fought tooth and nail to keep us out of the hands of the IMF. We bend over backwards to ensure that we continue to have education and social assistance going. We kept public servants employed, and we kept ourselves out of the hand, our country out of the hand of the IMF. There were many months we struggled with keeping the ship of state sailing and ensuring that our bills were paid. But thank God for the prudent leadership of Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. We got it done, and we have prevailed. And then came COVID that brought the entire world to its knees, and we stood tall because of sound leadership, and we continue to prevail. And even against the backdrop of our most trying financial and fiscal circumstances, we persevered with an ambitious development agenda and a compassionate, comprehensive social assistance system, always protecting the needy from the greedy, always protecting the weak from being trampled by the strong, always being a bastion of hope and strong tower for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, always being that fearless voice for the people of this nation. We remain focused. So despite the warnings of the multinational financial institution, we kept public servants employed, kept social assistance going, supported private sector development, invested in human capital development, GATE, OJT, CPEP, URP, old age pension, public assistance grant, home improvement and refurbishment, incentives to tourism stakeholders and agricultural business people. We were there, standing in the gap for you, providing the necessary assistance.
We kept the ship of state sailing. We did not cut. A matter of fact, we expanded, and that is what this government is all about, and we defend that. You know, when I listen to the opposition, they often say, and especially on social media, we shouldn't mention these accomplishments because this is what a government should do. That's your duty, and you're doing us no favor or giving us no luxury because you're using the taxpayer dollar. I smile. Then I calmly suggest that a major part of delivering on those duties is sound leadership, political will, and the decency to decide who received help and who didn't, where would development take place, and who had to wait and wait and wait, whether Tobagonians would suffer or whether the advancement of our development agenda would proceed. That takes political will. That takes wisdom in identifying priority and compassion in making a choice. The opposition forces had the chance to lead. They enjoyed the biggest budgets of that our country would have ever seen. And in making their choices, they exercised their power. Many of them like to pretend that they have forgotten. But we are here, brothers and sisters, to tell them how much we remember. They had the chance to expand the airport and to do the airport project. And they cordoned off the airport and didn't do any work there for 5 years and 4 months. They had the choice to open up the tourism accommodation upgrade program to Tobago stakeholders. Instead, they left it accessible to the Trinidadian hoteliers only. It took Shamfa Shakika during December of 2015 speaking up at the cabinet, taking a note to cabinet to have that program open and available to Tobago stakeholders. We expanded the government loan guaranteed program. They could have done that for Tobagonians, but they left us out. And it is the People's National Movement that had to do that. They had the choice, brothers and sisters, to bring relief to us as it relates to the land title and registration of deeds matter. Can you remember a committee headed by Vanilla Allen Toppin? They met sluggishly for 5 years, and at the end of it all, they presented to the people of Mason Hall empty, blank, not black, I say blank papers to the people of Tobago. They highlighted Tobago East as an economic zone, as a growth zone, and did nothing, absolutely nothing. Now it's up to Ayanna Webster Roy to speak up for Tobago East and to get development and projects done in Tobago East. Instead of buying a new ferry or properly maintaining the one we had, they kept the old ferry limping along, poorly maintained. That is, they had taxpayers' dollars at that time and the biggest budget in the history of our country. They complained that Tobago's tourism was left behind, but did little or nothing to properly market the destination. They said development was slow, and as Tobago asked year after year for the ability to borrow, the answer for Tobago was no. They cut us off from receiving national self-help grants in 2013. After they lost the election in January 2013, Tobagonians were cut off from the national self-help grant. It took this same mouth and this same voice at the level of the cabinet to speak to have national self-help reintroduced to Tobagonians. So they lacked compassion and they lacked care for Tobago, and they certainly did not have the political will to come through for us. 5 years, 4 months, and the biggest budget in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. What can the UNC show you, Tobagonians, for their time? What can UNC and their minions here in Tobago show you for the partnership that they would have shared? We, 5 years later, the People's National Movement, against a trying economic situation, still found it fit to invest in Tobago wholeheartedly. We can boast about delivery, performance, and robust development. That is what we did because we had the political will, and we chose to invest in Tobago deliberately and elaborately. And as my mother would say, who don't like it, sit beside it. PNM is on a roll, and we chose to develop Tobago. It is this same mouth that talked so much that had to sit at the cabinet table to speak for the expansion of the ANR airport here in Tobago. That project had been on the books for 30 years, and nobody found the money. It took the People's National Movement and Ayanna Webster Roy and Shamfa Kajou speaking for the people of Tobago. Spanking new ferries are on the way. You have the land title situation being resolved. We would have already passed the legislation, purchased the software, and the digitalization of deeds and the implementation of that program is taking place right now as we speak. It's this same mouth and this same voice at the level of the cabinet that would have spoken so that we can have the expansion of our electrical capacity at Cove. It is this same mouth and this same voice that sat at the table of the cabinet and lobbied for the Southwest Wastewater Project. We commissioned that project within 2 weeks. It is this same mouth and this same voice that sat on the table of the cabinet and ensure that the Dwight York Stadium, which would have been left dilapidated for over 10 years, to be refurbishment, a full refurbishment, the self-help program, opening up the top to Tobago, the government loans guarantee program, and access to agricultural grants that farmers in Tobago did not have access to before Ayanna Webster Roy and Shamfa Kojo sat at that cabinet and used the same mouth and the same voice to speak up on behalf of the people of Tobago. So representation for Tobago on the cabinet table, that is where decisions are made. It's not simply about sending you to Parliament. We had to speak up to accomplish these things. It is the same way we have spoken up over the years to provide support to youth groups in our communities so that they can run their sporting programs, to speak up for social assistance for our constituents, to speak up for women who year after year bring their book list to our constituency office. We had to find sponsors for them so that they can get their children to school. We solicit support to provide food and hampers to the people of our constituency, to help athletes. I want to take you to human capital development because we as MPs, we sit and we have resume writing sessions with constituents, business development proposals, this same mouth and this same voice. Been speaking up for the people of Tobago, the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, through the establishment of the 40 Under 40 program, where we take stakeholders and entrepreneurs from school to show young people that it's not just about getting 5 CXC subject, but about channeling your energies and your education to doing what you love and making money out of your skill. We have the LEAP program that speaks to personal and professional development of young people, getting them ready for the working world. We have graduated over 525 graduates from that program. We have the AIM program, which we brought to Tobago, where we had young people doing internship and learning how to establish their own businesses, how to build websites, how to market their businesses, how to do accounting for their businesses. What more? What more is the same mouth that would have lobbied for these things? And the list goes on, but my time is limited. The PNM is on a roll, and we remain deliberate and elaborate in building Tobago. We remain deaf to the cries of the UNC that $1.2 billion is too much to spend on an airport for Tobago. We remain deaf to the cries of the naysayers that say we don't deserve 2 spanking new, specially built, world-class ferries. We remain deaf to the cries of the UNC that said giving tourism and agri-grants during the COVID period is a waste of taxpayers' money for Tobago. Where were the Spartans and the PDP and their voices when these things were happening? Where were those voices when Sat Miraj was denigrating Tobagonians, calling us rapists and calling us unproductive? Where were these same voices when Suraj Rambachan sat in the parliament and called Tobagonians lazy? We ignore the naysayers and the tongue criers. We keep pressing on so that Tobago will get its fair share and move closer and closer to parity, and even in some areas to boast of superiority. That's our track record, and we will defend it. What does the UNC have to show? What does the PDP have to show? Brothers and sisters, this is a time for choosing. This is a time for discernment and wisdom. This is a time for choosing. And you have to be able to tell the difference between a jack and a king. One side is telling you check our track record. The other one is telling you just send us to Parliament. Send us to Parliament to do what? to form the government with whom? Because you can talk and talk and talk in Parliament, but in order to get things done, you have to be a part of the government, and all the speakers before me would have said that. Pounding to galvanize is not development or delivery. Giving the boys on the block money to buy drinks and cook pork and dumpling is not the way to improve, would not improve their lot, and that is not service. Screaming through the airwaves and roughing up the people when you meet them in the street is not representation. Begging for a chance with no plan, no direction, that is not leadership with distinction. And simply participating in a debate is not considered getting the job done. We have talked. Ayanna Webster Roy in the east and Shamfa Kojo in the west. We have talked the talk and we have walked the walk. We cannot say the same about them. So that leaves you with the PDP and the UNC. And I wonder which Tobagoan among us would settle for, would sit and watch us waltz back into the hands of Kamala. Not one of us. Not one of us. They have been trying to sell us. They have been telling us increasingly that we have to make a decision choosing between left and right. And I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, it is bigger and deeper than that. It is not about left and right. It's about up and down. Whether we're going forward or backward. Whether we choose wisdom or ignorance. Whether we choose light or darkness. Or history would have told us that there is no future for us, no good thing when Tobago, any so-called Tobago party joins with the UNC. That if that partnership made sense, the DAC would still be standing. If that kind of arrangement was to our benefit, the NAR would still be standing. If that type of partnership was beneficial to the Tobagonian, the Tobago Forwards would still be standing. If that type of relationship was beneficial to us as Tobagonians, the TOP would still be standing. They said that they are going to give us internal self-government. If that were true, over the years when they've made that arrangement, by now we would have been the independent Democratic Republic of Tobago. They said send them to Parliament, the allocation would increase. They came back with nothing, precious nothing. They told us we'll get our airport. They came back with nothing, precious nothing. University of Tobago, nothing, precious nothing. They'll increase autonomy, nothing, precious nothing. They'll help us with the registration of deed and fix inter-island transport, nothing. They came back with nothing, precious nothing. They sat at their tables and they ate their food. Their mouths were too full to speak up for us. Their hands were tied by their UNC puppet masters and they were too busy building pumpkin houses. Brothers and sisters, I want you to let them know that we remember. So to see Vanilla Allen Topping and Delmon Baker show up at the PDP launch, stone pussy dressed in their black, ready to support Watson Duke, that is a slap in the face to Tobagonians. And then to learn that the main reason why Watson Duke PDP and Chrislyn Moore, Hochoy, Charles and Ashwood Jack OTV are not facing the polls as one big united trappy UNC family is because Chrislyn Moore made out Watson Duke to be a psychopathic liar. Despite how much you tell us about the benefits of a Tobago party, those of you who have traded our dignity for personal aggrandizement and political expediency, you have embarked on a dangerous course, a downward spiral, and we are not prepared to endorse that or to go there with you. Brothers and sisters, as I close, if we allow ourselves to be tricked into getting in bed with Kamala and the UNC once again, history will record this mistake with tremendous astonishment. We will live to regret, and we will not be forgiven by our children. Tobagonians, you deserve better. Tobagonians, you know better. Tobagonians, you're too smart to encourage this tomfoolery. Tobagonians, this is an assault, a brutal assault to your dignity. Tobagonians, this is a bold-faced insult to your intelligence and your decency. This time calls for intelligent, inspiring, sober and sane leadership. Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, right man, right time. Ayanna Webster Roy in the east. Shamfa Ashaki Kojo in the west. And when we speak out like this, they send their trolls for us on social media. I want to tell Mr. Ragbir, Mr. Maraj, and Mr. Sigobin, I don't need no encouragement and you don't intimidate me. We, the people of Tobago, will defend Tobago and Tobagoanians by any means necessary. So send your trolls. Send your trolls and come. Bait me on social media. Call out your trolls. On August 10th, we will beat you at the polls. 22 more days, red and ready. 41 strong candidates, red and ready. Solid, sober and sane, red and ready. Stay in our own lane, we red and ready. PNM outside, we red and ready. Tell PDP try, we red and ready. Red Army outside, we red and ready. Tell the UNC to hide, we red and ready. Still out and bad, we red and ready. Man in our own yard, we red and ready. Let your finger be your voice, we red and ready. On August 10th, we're making the right choice. We are red and ready. And at the end of the day, when we count our votes, we would stand here and we raise our hands together and sing, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail. I thank you.
Let's say it one more time for a Member of Parliament for Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy, and Tobago West, Ms. Shamfa Kajo. On the 10th, we go in and put our X by the Balizé. No entanglement. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker, our final speaker, is the man with the plan. Is the man with the vision. They say, blindness comes to those with perfect sight, but no vision. This man is a visionary. They also said that wise men came from the east. Where are you from? Mason Hall. And that's where I am from as well. So I could tell you a thing or two about wise men. So at this time, I want you to help me to bring to the stage the political leader of the People's National Movement and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Just give me faith, heads up high. We're together in this, you and I. Yes, the job will be done and the race will be won, and we know we will win every time. And we go vote for the love of we.
Good night, Tobago. Good night, Trinidad and Tobago. Chairman of the Tobago Island Council of the PNM, Mr. Stalford Calendar, and other members of the executive of the Tobago Island Council, other party officers here in Tobago, my cabinet colleague, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Mr. Senator Dennis Moses, fellow citizens all, wherever you are tonight, permit me to acknowledge two distinguished Tobagonians at the head table. On my left, the leader of the People's National Movement, Tobago Island Council. That leader joins a line of people who seem to be taking over this country very quietly but very effectively. President, Speaker, Head of the Senate, Head of the PNM in Tobago, we're watching all there. Keeping our eyes on you all. The women are taking over this country. Our daughters are taking over from us. Because on my right, I have the Chief Secretary. He represents youth. Chief Secretary Ansel Dennis. So we're getting one. And then on his right, two more women. We're keeping our eyes on you all. You're taking over, or you have taken over. Because last election, you, the people of Tobago, presented 2 young people to the PNM to contest the general election. We were in the opposition then, and all we had was the hope that you would be sensible and vote wisely. And with the information available to you as to what your future held, you give us the quality of persons to run the government of Trinidad and Tobago for the next 5 years. In the East, you gave us Ayanna Webster Roy, Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy, a mother of 2 young children, but a person who had been serving Tobago in the public service. In the West, you gave us Shamfa Kojo. And in the office of Prime Minister, you gave the country the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West. And in so doing, you put 3 voices on the cabinet table. Tobago in the Prime Minister's office, Minister from Tobago East in the Prime Minister's office as Minister responsible for Women and Children's Affairs, and MP for Tobago West, Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs at this time, having served as Minister of Tourism before. Tonight, as head of the cabinet, I want to say to the people of Tobago that your choices in 2015 were very good choices. They represent the best that you have to offer. They have worked well, and they have served not just Tobago, not just their constituencies, but they are serving their country well. I then would not spend much of my time here tonight trying to convince you that that is so, because I know that you know that. And the best yardstick that you can use to measure these young women who came forward into public service is to ask yourself whether you will ask your children to be like them and to do what they have done, which is to do well and come forward not only for themselves, but for the rest of the nation. I'm sure the answer would be yes. They are serving us well. Election campaigns show up a lot of things. But tonight, I want to deviate from a lot of what you might expect in a political meeting. Because taking one look at this hall, someone will not think that this is a political meeting. But it demonstrates what the politics of this country and the country's governance need more than ever. And that is discipline. Discipline. To see you in this hall, which we would normally fill from wall to wall in any PNM function, in a normal circumstance, you will fill this room from wall to wall with Tobagoans from all walks of life. But tonight, you are seated, spaced out, paying attention from your chairs, wearing your masks, because this general election is taking place during a historic development, a dangerous historic development, a development that threatens our life, a pandemic. And you are here doing what has to be done to protect yourself and to protect us during a pandemic, even as we go about our business. I trust that there might be a photograph of this for the rest of the nation to understand that it can be done. We can get on with our business and we can fight COVID at the same time. You are representing discipline. And all that we have to do going forward, everything that we have to do going forward requires discipline. Because in our watchwords that Dr. Williams gave us, he started with discipline. And he spoke about production and he spoke about tolerance. Discipline, production, and tolerance. I could tell you, Dr. Williams didn't know that there was a pandemic coming. But his entreaty to us to be a disciplined people could not have hit the nail better on the head. We are a disciplined people, and it is that discipline. It is that discipline that has caused us to act in a particular way, where today, Trinidad and Tobago is one of the few countries in the world that could say that the rate at which we are being infected is very, very low, because we have been acting in a particular disciplined way. I ask you to continue. As long as that virus is the threat, and as long as the medical staff in our hospitals and in the ministry tells us that this is the best thing to do, let us follow their advice, and God will be our guide. I thank you. There were a number of conversations that were taking place in this country for the months and years. We are now at the end of a 5-year term, and it's at the end of that term that I'm asking you to come out on August 10th and support our 2 candidates to continue to serve you in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. You would have heard the observation from the leader of the PNM here in Tobago, Mrs. Tracy Davison Celestine, making the observation that Tobago's interest is best served when Tobagoans are sitting at the table where the decisions are being made. That is important. You know that if you vote these 2 PNM candidates into office, they will sit where the decisions are being made with the rest of the PNM team in the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and you would be well served. That's what you know. Others who would like to replace them have offered you independence. Independence to start with. Then when that didn't take root to excite your reaction, they said, okay, what they're fighting for is internal self-government. And they're going down to make sure they get it. Such conversations assume that you are stupid. And you will then follow something that looks good, sounds good, but is a nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, on this subject of internal self-government, right now, the most progress that ever was made on that since the THA Act was passed is in progress now in the Parliament. And you don't need any indisciplined noisemaker to tell you about your quest for further autonomy in Tobago. Orville London, the Venerable Orville London who served you so well, the undefeated Orville London, conducted in this Tobago 2 years of consultation in virtually every village in Tobago, under the guidance of legal experts and your local experts, those with information and those with only ambition. We had 2 years of talking about it here in Tobago. Out of that came draft pieces of legislation. And the next step, having put what you talked about and what you think it should be and how we should proceed and what you want and so on, doable and undoable in some cases, you put it in script, in a draft law, which now the next step in our governance structure is to get that to the cabinet. You did that, that happened. By the time it got to the cabinet, there was a Tobagonian as head of the cabinet, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. The cabinet looked at it, we discussed it, but we did not change it in any way because we wanted what Tobagonians said to go to the Parliament, because the authority for making any change like that is the Parliament. Nobody else could tell you otherwise, because that is so. You know that. So while the cabinet discussed it, cabinet wanted your generic thoughts to go to the Parliament as they were encapsulated in those draft laws. So we then took it to the Parliament. The PNM only has a certain number of votes in the Parliament, but those votes are bolstered by the party's position at convention, where we are the only political party that by resolution at a convention said that we are supporting this move by the Tobagonians as they move forward in for further. The only party, the PNM. But we do not have enough seats in the Parliament to make the changes that are required to advance the situation as it exists now in law. So it goes to Parliament, because the country is Trinidad and Tobago, and I'll come back to that in a minute. It goes to the Parliament, and in order for it to go any further, it doesn't matter what you think here in Tobago, doesn't matter what you want, or how you vex, or how you agree, or how you're nice and smooth, the only way it can move beyond that to the next step is if the votes in the Parliament vote to make some changes that you want, or all the changes that you want. So it goes to a joint select committee. That joint select committee is made up of government people, opposition people, and the independent senators made up. And that committee is now where the matter lies. And the committee has been working, contrary to what you have heard from Watson Duke, about we took it to Parliament and threw it behind some thing for cockroach to live on. Let me tell you what has happened since that thing went to the Parliament. I'll just quote here from a document I just received from the leader of government business. And it says, over the course of several meetings from November 2019 to January 2020, the committee carried out a clause-by-clause examination of the bill supported by the Office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel. 5 policy issues in the bill were identified. Local stakeholder comments as well as international expert contributions were taken into consideration to arrive at and rank a range of options going forward for each policy issue. The policy issues were financial provisions, A, budgetary allocation, B, revenue sharing, C, fiscal review, D, borrowing, and E, the establishment of a Tobago fund. Item 2, dispute resolution. Item 3, Tobago Civil Service and Tobago Service Commission. 4, Tobago legislature, and 5, division of powers. That division of powers, that is anchored in the Constitution, Section 75, which requires a certain number of votes to be interfered with. That is the work that is taking place in the Parliament. And then it goes on to say, in May 2018, the committee held discussions on the bill with United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, policy specialists with expertise in political and fiscal matters in autonomous subnational regions. The following issues were addressed: autonomy for Tobago within the state of Trinidad and Tobago. 2, the division of powers between the state of Trinidad and Tobago and the island of Tobago. 3, financing and revenue sharing. 4, dispute resolution between the levels of government, and 5, Tobago government institutions. And of course, the report also addressed the following issues. 1, purpose and nature of Tobago's autonomy status. 2, definition of Tobago. 3, autonomy structures Tobago legislature. 4, division of powers and functions between Trinidad and Tobago government and the island government legislative. 5, the civil service. 6, intergovernmental fiscal relations. 7, fiscal review commission. 8, intergovernmental dispute resolution. And 9, central institutions and principles and process of shared rule. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the distillates of the work that you have done here in Tobago in your consultation, in the draft bill that is before the Parliament, and that is the work of the Joint Select Committee, which will be kick-started again when we come back in the Parliament as the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So when you hear ill-disciplined Watson Duke talking in Tobago about he going to give you self-government, what he's threatening to do, if he ever find himself in a position to do so, is to derail all of that. And you only have to look at his record in the PSA to know what you will get. You only have to look at that. But we move on, because I'm not going to waste any time on you on Watson Duke, because I know you know better than that. I want to take you tonight to something that you should know. Because you see, last election, I told you all, Watson Duke was a proxy for the UNC. You all didn't believe. I'm telling you again tonight. He is the official UNC candidate in Tobago. And how I know is because I am contesting against the UNC, and I get my information from the UNC. And as a matter of fact, they are paying more attention to and providing more resources to Watson Duke in Tobago than in their own seats in Trinidad. That's what it is. So when they say they're not having any coalition, no partnership, no declared coalition, but they have a quiet one going with an arrangement with Watson Duke, if you put God out your thoughts and give him a seat in Tobago. And of course, that is why All along, you hear the leader of the UNC saying, we are going alone, we're standing alone, we want no coalition. But 2 weeks before the election, she's calling for an accord with other parties. What other parties is she calling for accord with? She's signaling that she's opening the door to bring Watson Duke in if you put God out your thoughts and give him one of Tobago seats. So we understand that. And let me tell you something else too. I'm not against him fixing anybody's roof in Tobago. In fact, they should fix more roofs. Because the money they're using to fix the roof is the money they thief from the government. So if you send them money, send them lumber, send them galvanized. And I want to see how many roofs they will fix between now and August 10th. But all of that is to make a fool out of you. But let me tell you how our money has been spent. Because you see, as we come close to the election, they started feeling confident. Because they know that the government knew what was happening, but the government could not be talking about what was happening because we are a responsible government. So they began to believe that nothing was going to happen to them. Because if they get into power, especially with Watson Duke help, they will stop all that was going on. So at the same time they were saying nothing is happening, they know they want to stop certain things. I don't normally come and read for you on any platform. When I come to these podiums, I have something to say to you, and I stand in front of you and I tell you what I have to say. Tonight I want to read for you, because tonight is a signal night, because today was a signal day. I went out to Roxborough this morning, where we are rebuilding the town of Roxborough. We are recreating a new Roxborough. And it's not just for Roxborough, it is for all of Eastern Tobago, the furthest part east of our country. Since I became Prime Minister about 50 months ago, thereabouts, I have had the opportunity to take part with the THA in the opening of the Roxborough Administrative Center. So Roxborough has, in the town of Roxborough now, in the new town center that's being built, an administrative center that provides all public service, including customs and Coast Guard. Then subsequent to that, I had the opportunity to turn the sod for a new hospital in Roxborough. Today I toured that hospital and I was very pleased with what I saw going on there. It's about 50% complete and they're working 7 days a week and the work is progressing very well. So Roxborough is having a new hospital. So Roxborough also has a new fire station that is now 96% complete. By the end of this month, it will be complete and handed over. Roxborough also had in that area, that general area of Roxborough that we're building up there, you will see the secondary school, hospital, the new police station which we opened recently. There's a new gas station there which was built in 2015, and of course you will see the new fire station and you will see the administrative complex. That is now the center of the second town in Tobago and is growing fast. But all of those developments I mentioned that took place in our time in this period of shortage of money, that is a question of decision making and what you want to do for the people and how you want to use their resources. Much of what you see there is a development program for Tobago, because in the western part of Tobago we have a major project underway now, which is the whole question of the expansion of the Tobago airport. It just so happens it's taking place now when tourism and air traffic is virtually dead. But it wouldn't always be so. By the time we would have finished building that airport terminal building and we come back to some semblance of normalcy, we will have in Tobago an airport that can receive proper traffic, and Tobago's tourism and Tobago's entry and egress would have been improved. And the decision to give those items priority is a decision made by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, a PNM government. It is not that those things weren't required for Tobago before. They have been required for quite some time by other people. choose to spend on other things and not to spend on those things. This government of which Shamfa Kodjo is a part, on which Ayana Westaroy is a part, and where I am the Prime Minister, we chose to spend on those things, and that's why you're getting those things. That's why they're a priority. And that's why you need to come out and vote. You need to come out and vote in support of that. Because to not vote is to say you don't care. And to vote for Watson Duke and the UNC in 90, you could do that to Tobago. You couldn't do that. Huh? Take a stand for what you believe in. Take a stand for your interests. Let me put this in perspective for you. As I came back from Roxborough this morning, I was depressed after I read The Guardian. Not that what I was reading was news to me, because as Prime Minister, a lot of information comes to me from all different directions, inside and outside the government. I knew what I read, but reading it and seeing that being read, being told to the people of this country, seeing this being our circumstance, I felt depressed, because we could have done better than that. We must do better than this. Many of you would not have read The Guardian today. Let me read it for you. I'm going to convert my speech tonight in reading The Guardian, a very unusual development. Sunday, July 19th, my staff printed this out and sent it to me so I could read it from page, not from the, it's easy to read from here. But I'm reading it word for word. Get a copy of today's Guardian, story by Mark Bassant, lead editor on the investigative desk. And I'm reading this for you, and Tobagoans and the rest of the country, pay attention. Because there were people who are on their way to Parliament now who are telling you that there was nothing to worry about and there was nothing being said that they should be concerned about. And the whole issue about corruption in this country was a joke. Well, let me tell you what the joke is. The Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau, the ACIB, has cracked the case involving the pillaging of taxpayers' money through a fraudulent scheme involving the Estate Management and Business Development Company, EMBD, in the lead up to the September 2015 general election, and arrests are imminent. Over the last year and a half, officers from the ACIB, with assistance from a UK prosecution and investigation firm, Edmonds Marshall McMahon, have been able to piece together complex financial information which forms part of the criminal investigation being pursued by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So these are statements of fact. A document obtained by the Guardian media revealed that a prominent politician, and I may want to add here, who in a safe seat, they say, who on the way back to Parliament and they go win the election and go back into government, a prominent politician orchestrated a scheme that resulted in significant funds being secured and spent by EMBD in 6 weeks, listen to the time, in 6 weeks before the general election on September 7th, amounting to a staggering, listen, $549 million. That is over $500 million spent in 6 weeks between August and September. Investigators believe this politician was able to implement the fraudulent scheme with the assistance of a former senior employee of the EMBD, who has now fled the country, and his close acquaintances, the CEOs of all the 4 construction companies, who in turn engage the assistance of subordinates. Investigators have painstakingly mapped out the modus operandi of the major players, several individuals and companies who helped to facilitate this scheme from the embryonic stages to fruition. I told you we knew that, but the reason why I'm telling you now is because you're paying attention when you're listening. Because had I said this before, they would have been saying, it's politics. Is the Prime Minister trying to play politics? This is now in the Guardian for the public to buy a copy and read. But I want you to read, I want you to know. So you see, A man, the politician called the boss by investigators, with the assistance of the former EMBD senior employee and a contractor, concocted a series of road upgrade projects known as C1 to C10 roads. Investigators revealed these projects came out of the blue, and a note to the cabinet, and remember, only a minister of government can carry a note to the cabinet. A note to the cabinet seeking approval for the works and funding had been drafted long before the EMBD engineer had visited the site of the roads. Turn the page. The boss presented the note to the cabinet, and the works and funding was approved on April 30th, 2015. Stick a pin. The term of the UNC, there are 5 years, was ending in May. They took the 90 days that the law allowed, taking the election to September. But the term of office that they were elected for was ending in May. So in April, on the last day of April, the sum of $330 million was approved for these traces and lanes and roads in the bush somewhere in central Trinidad. Investigators discovered that these projects did not form part of EMBD's scope of work and therefore became additional funding. By the time the tender had come around, EMBD's estimate for the cost of the roads had been arbitrarily inflated to $416,340,000 by a senior employee of the EMBD. This meant that bidders could now bid higher. Bidding companies colluded with each other to predetermine who would win which road. During the lengthy investigation, police found evidence of full bid information for the 7 and 8 roads, dated before the bids were submitted on a computer in one of the companies in question. The contracts were awarded to the companies with bids that were suspiciously close to each other. At least 8 of the 10 bids were within 2% of the estimates. Once the roads began, the companies submitted fraudulent claims for materials not used or work not done. In one instance, a company claimed $23 million for Guaracara boulders that were not used. Another company double-counted and overclaimed a similar amount for excavation work linked to road widening that was never done. A senior employee from EMBD apparently signed off on the claims. Another employee questioned the claims made by the 2 companies, but was told by the senior EMBD employee that he had to sign off on the claims because the boss ordered it. On August 25th, 2015, this is now in the middle of the election campaign, because remember it started on April 30th. In the middle of that election campaign of 2015, on August 25th, the boss instructed an official to submit the claims to the Ministry of Finance to make an interim payment to companies in the sum of $179,626. So contractors were getting a bonanza right then and there. The Ministry of Finance, which initially said that there was no money to meet the claims, provided and approved $100 million on September 1st. Election day, September 7th. The following day, the senior employee at a particular company, after receiving instructions from the boss as to how the $100 million should be spent, sent a message to the senior employee at the EMBD. Investigators discovered the boss will regularly instruct the senior EMBD employee who should be paid. So understand something. A private company individual, on the instruction of a minister, was telling EMBD employees how to distribute $100 million. The boss was able to help secure an additional funding for EMBD. And listen to this. The boss was able to get additional funding when the 100 million was deposited of a $400 million loan from First Citizens Bank. So there was thieving money that you had, and there was thieving money you didn't have because there was borrowing money to thief it. Investigators revealed that in total, between the 7th of August and the 3rd of September 2015, let me repeat that, between the 7th of August, that is in the middle of the election campaign, and the 3rd of September, that is the Thursday before election, which is the second to last working day of the UNC, the EMBD received funding to the tune of $549 million. By the close of business on September 4th, which was the Friday evening, the last day that the UNC was in office, all that money had been spent in that 1 month. 4 companies received a total of $400 million, and other contractors received nothing. These are what the documents show, documents that are in the possession of the Guardian. That's why the Guardian could have published this story today. According to the forensic investigation, you see, when they were telling him that was happening and nothing happened, there was a forensic investigation taking place. So today, the Guardian could publish, and I quote, according to the forensic investigation, a paper trail revealed that about 60 million of unexplained payments had been identified to companies or individuals that appear to have no commercial connection to the companies. In one instance, millions of dollars were paid to low-level employees in one of the companies that benefited from the fraudulent scheme. The document, which comes from the ACIB, it says, stated that as the money trail is followed, the amounts converted to cash increase. So you start at the top with checks from the bank to the Minister of Finance, to the EMBD, to contractors, and then the contractors started dealing large amounts of cash. The lengthy probe also found that apart from the enrichment of certain companies, a former senior EMBD employee who covered to the boss's instructions also benefited from payments amounting to over $1 million. During the 1.5-year-long investigation, because they will come and tell you now this for election, during the 1.5-year-long investigation, the ACIB conducted searches of several companies across the country. They were able to collect data from EMBD and other state entities. They also obtained several production orders covering at least 24 account holders and information on close to 50 bank accounts. The ACIB was also able to obtain production orders from 2 telecom companies and call and message logs for at least 12 key phone numbers. They have also obtained witness statements from EMBD staff, police officers, cybercrime officers, Central Bank, TT Mortgage Company, TTRF, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and a quarry company. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what has been happening with respect to pursuing those who felt that they could do what they want in Trinidad and Tobago, and they had the wherewithal to fool the electorate and get themselves back into the corridors of power and prevent this from going further. When I told you earlier on, without going into details, I kept telling you the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn. That what I just read there for you from The Guardian is the work of the Anti-Corruption Bureau in Trinidad and Tobago involving the police and all the authorities. I told you also that those other people have no interest in your development as they had shown before, and that is why your development is only coming now under this PNM government. All that they mentioned tonight, who spoke here on this platform as to what is happening in Tobago and Tobago's development. We are interested in your development. Those bandits were only interested in your money. And I want to ask you tonight, given what you just heard and can read in The Guardian, if you send that to Parliament and into government, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, head of the party, Prime Minister, Geraldine John, Deputy Political Leader, Mooninal, Deputy Political Leader, and of course, any others who they influence, do you expect them to encourage the government of Trinidad and Tobago to work and conclude these criminal investigations? Based on what they did with the Piarco Airport inquiry, do you expect a government led by that group of people and anybody who they influence in the cabinet, that they will allow justice to be served? And that is why I'm saying to you tonight, you have a choice. You can support the government's actions through these agencies and let these matters be concluded so that you can know what happened to your money and who should be held accountable, and let justice take its course. You see, you got up one morning, one Saturday morning here in this country, or no, it was a Thursday afternoon. One Thursday afternoon, out of the blue, you were told that as of Monday morning, the banks would be closed and all your $100 bills would be changed for new ones. Many of you didn't understand what it meant. It gave Mariano Brown about 10 or 5 articles to talk about every Friday. They said the country was going to collapse because the government changed the money at Christmas time and was a bad decision, and la 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 la. It turned out that exchange of bills in Trinidad and Tobago was the smoothest and most effective ever carried out in the world. And it had to be done in secret, because had they known, those who had cash in barrel and in box, wherever they had it, had they known that that money was going to be changed, they would have moved heaven and earth to get it into the banking system before the time had closed. So it had to be done in secrecy. There were 3 people in this country who knew that that was being done. 3 officers of state who knew. And for 2 years we worked on that. So when we told you that Thursday afternoon, get ready to change the money, everything was in place. And when those who tell us, well, it cannot be done because it takes long to print the money is already printed. And when you're going to get it here for Thursday, the plane is being loaded in London. Right? And when it was all said and done, and you got the report recently from the central bank, almost $500 million never came back to be exchanged. And I ask you the question then, who were the owners of that money that didn't bring it to exchange it for new money? And I answered it for you. It was people who could not be seen to associate with the money. So they had to keep it. Small pieces. Very difficult to make toilet paper with that. Right? But that's where it is now. That's where it is now. You can imagine in a little country like this, in a little economy like ours, we are changing, giving you a new bill for the old one, and 500 million didn't come back. A few of them walk up with money that they couldn't explain. The money got sealed. They're gone and never come back to look at it. Because in the interim, we were passing laws in the country, laws that we didn't have to fight white-collar crime. And every time we go to Parliament with one of those laws, man, they fight us to the bitter end and would not support a single piece. There was one called Explain Your Wealth. They wanted no part of that. Proceeds of Crime Act, they wanted no part of that. Factor where you have to tell the Americans what you know and they will tell you what they know, they wanted no part of that. All kinds of excuse, and they oppose every piece of legislation. But with your PNM government and the support of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, without their help, we have passed a suite of legislation that puts this country in a position to deal with white-collar crime. That, ladies and gentlemen, is only a snippet of your circumstance. That is local. International. I went to Barbados soon after I was Prime Minister. I was at some meeting in Barbados, and one of my golfing friends said to me that somebody wanted to talk to me. And I asked, who is this person? It was some shady, nebulous character who, hearing that I was in Barbados, decided to use a friend of mine to talk to me. And I said, what about? he had supplied some ship to Trinidad and Tobago, and he wanted to talk to me about the payment, the money I said, stop. Just stop right there. I said, anybody who provide 12 vessels to our country on credit without documentation and financing being in place that will stand scrutiny is not to talk to me. Good. I say, and if he has any issue with the government of Trinidad and Tobago and a debt that was incurred for anything he supplied, let him go and talk to the relevant authorities in Trinidad and Tobago. He's not talking to me. I didn't know the man, I never seen him, and I never saw him. Today, I want to read something else for you. And I'm reading it because I just put the facts together. It's important that I don't misrepresent anything, so I'm not going to freewheel it for you. I'll just read it. There's a brief that I have which says, in September 2015, the Dutch Fiscal Intelligence and Investigative Service, FIOD, initiated a criminal investigation into the suspicion of bribery committed by the Damen Shipyard Group, Damen, a company based in Groningen in Netherlands. The investigation was led by the Anti-Corruption Division of the Dutch National Prosecutor's Office. In 2015, the prosecution received various signals that Damen was involved in bribery of foreign officials relative to vessel building contracts awarded to Damen. These signals came from foreign authorities such as the World Bank and Damen's external accountant, Ernst & Young. In January 2017, the offices of Damen were raided based on suspicion and further investigation. A large amount of data and digital information was seized. From this investigation, several additional suspicions arose relative to foreign bribery and are being investigated under different investigation projects. So there are serious investigations taking place in Holland with respect to the company that just miraculously in 2015 out of the blue appeared on the scene and made 12 vessels available to Trinidad and Tobago by a contract that we never heard about before. Some of the vessels got here before the election, and we had to pay for the rest when we came into office. The most expensive ones we had to pay for in the end. But there was this arrangement. This Damen just appeared on the scene. And Damen is a family company, in case you don't know. It's owned by a family. And the investigation that the Dutch government is doing now with international assistance, one, is called the Caribbean investigation, two, the Bahamas investigation, and three, the Trinidad and Tobago investigation. The agent for Damen functioned with regard to the contracts awarded to Damen by governments of the Bahamas and Trinidad and Tobago. Under the Bahamas investigation, what triggered the attention of the Dutch anti-corruption government agencies was that the Bahamian government had bought 9 patrol vessels and a roll-on, roll-off vessel for the Royal Bahamas Defence Force. The total cost of the contract was 84 million euros. That is 665 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars. The agent on that contract was paid $79 million, which was 12% of the contract paid to an agent. That's on the Bahamas deal. What caused the Dutch to be alerted is that agency fees in Holland are usually no more than 4%. But this one was 12%. And when they looked, they realized that something was going on. And then they looked at Trinidad and Tobago. And the Trinidad and Tobago investigation shows that Damen was contracted on the 16th of March 2015. Let's go back down memory lane. When Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC came into office, they met the Patrick Manning government having paid for and to receive a finished one of more offshore patrol vessels. There was another one that was about to go to have sea trials. One had already completed the sea trials and was ready for delivery. They canceled that contract. Remember that? And they took back the billion and how much dollars from the people. And we had no patrol vessels as the Manning government had put in place to patrol our borders. A few months later, after they came into office, the Venezuelan economy started to go in a certain direction, and the Venezuelan politics got from bad to worse after Chavez died. And the outcome of that was there was migration out of Venezuela, and by the time I became Prime Minister, one of the biggest problems I had to face was an invasion of Venezuelan migrants into Trinidad and Tobago. And they had a lot to say. Close the border, close the border, close the border. After they cancelled the patrol vessels, which are the tools for closing the border, guns and women overrun Trinidad and Tobago from South America. And as I mentioned to you, guns and women, I ask you if you think Kamla Prasad, Bisasa and Moonlal will want these investigations concluded. I want to ask you all a question. If Rachi Ram is in the cabinet, you think human trafficking will end in Trinidad and Tobago or increase? They are the people who are threatening to be in charge of our country if you put God out of your thoughts. We are fighting human trafficking. We are fighting that criminality and all the crime that goes with it, guns and women, and you carefully picking people who could facilitate that, to put them in the cabinet, you know. But let me tell you about our investigation with the Dutch. March 16th, which is just over 2 months before the term ended. So all the time, but 2015, just over 2 months before they're due to leave. All the time, they wouldn't appoint a commissioner of police. They fired the commissioner of police, wouldn't replace him. Had Stephen Williams on month to month or week to week, telling us that they don't fight crime in the sea. You fight them on the street in Belmont. Remember that story? But as they were about to go to the polls and expecting that that would be a major election issue in March of 2016, March 16, 2015, sorry, they put an order in for 12 diamond vessels. And the contract price was $1,368,000,000, so $1.368 billion. That was the size of that contract for those 12 vessels that they ordered from Damen 2 months before they were about to leave office. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2016, the agent, so they had an agent for the Trinidad contract too. The agent sent Damen 13 invoices with reference to the Trinidad and Tobago project for a total of 130 million TT dollars. The investigation discovered that a total commission to a foreign agent, its local partner, so there was a local agent, there's an agent with a local partner, and its St. Lucia affiliate, there was a St. Lucia affiliate, in the sum of 23 million euros. That is 177 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars. That is what the agent cornered in that contract to provide those vessels on credit. So the Bahamas agency cost Bahamas 12%. Trinidad and Tobago, it was 13% of the contract. A contract of 1.368 billion. They couldn't go straight to Durban and buy it. They had to buy it through middlemen and middlewomen and give them $177 million. And all of this was done in great secrecy. And of course, they were hoping that you never know. But the local agent, the Dutch government is telling you there were some other flags that caused them to want to look at it. Because They saw the buyers of the vessels were government agencies. They saw the location of the agent. Remember I told you a man from Barbados when he talked to me? The agency was in somebody's basement in Barbados. And the fact that a former Minister of National Security was involved in the negotiation of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard contract and was mentioned in relation to corruption. So that investigation by the Dutch, like the one I just mentioned with EMBD, has a government minister identified in it as part of the investigation process. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been going on. On March 21st, 2018, the Central Authority Unit met with a public prosecutor with the National Prosecutor's Office of Serious Fraud and Environmental Crime and the Task Force Against International Corruption for the Netherlands. And his name there. The prosecutor indicated that the Dutch prosecuting authorities were investigating a Dutch international shipbuilding company with respect to a major corruption scandal which involved government shipbuilding contracts in the Caribbean and included the ordering of vessels by the Coast Guard of Trinidad and Tobago in 2015. The Dutch prosecutors invited representatives from Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados and the Bahamas to attend a Eurojust coordination joint meeting in the Netherlands on July 11 to 12, 2018 at the Eurojust offices in The Hague, in Netherlands. The Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago and the Director of Public Prosecutions both attended this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, so when you hear them saying that nothing has been going on and nothing will happen and the corruption was all talk and that was only PNM talk for political purposes, those were the billions of dollars and that's only part of the story. As I tell you, this is not news to me. But I could not go telling you this up and down the place because you would listen to them when they and the lawyer started crying. You see the Prime Minister talking about it and the Minister talking about it because this is political. Well, it's out in the open now. It is not political, it is information because the owners of the money need to know and you are the owners of those monies and you need to know what the UNC did with your money. And you also need to know that justice will be served because serious investigations have taken place and serious investigations are going on. And for them to continue, you've got to keep them as far as possible from the corridors of power. Because the only way there will be no answers to these questions is if they are allowed in there to stop it, to prevent it from being concluded. Today I want to ask you, if the hospital in Roxborough costs $100 million as it is, what do you make of $177 million going to some man that somebody knew that give an agency fee like that? And if all that we have done for Roxborough, if we had that $549 million, what could we have done for the rest of the country? And while they were spending money like that, they didn't think to build a new airport terminal building in Tobago. And I have to listen to Watson Duke telling me, but he's going to be Prime Minister to work with them as Prime Minister to do what in this country? I want you to close your eyes for a second in this meeting and picture Trinidad and Tobago with Watson Duke as the head of the cabinet table with our UNC government. And we could name them for you. So it's Watson Duke in the Prime Minister chair, Kamala home, because she don't come to work, Khadija Amin, Rati Ram, Jolene John. That is Trinidad and Tobago's future. That is the future that they are offering us on August 10th if you put God out of your thoughts. And make no skylark about it, you know. Other countries have done worse. Other countries have done worse thinking that they were doing better, you know. But you have every reason to steer yourself away from that because you have had the opportunity to select, to advance, to work with, and to see the outcome of the representation that you have sent to Parliament and to a PNM cabinet, in a PNM government, in a Trinidad and Tobago run by the PNM. I am of Saroy in Tobago East and Shamfa in Tobago West. That is all you need to do on August 10th. That's all you need to know on August 10th, and wait for the rest of the answer. you send them to Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a particularly difficult time for any government that would have been in office in Trinidad and Tobago. We have had to fight this COVID. We have had to find money to distribute money. There are almost 50,000 people. We had to provide money to their hands in one way or the other that was not budgeted for. But because of what the virus did to us and the danger it posed, because of the only way we could fight it was to shut down the country, send you into your house, close the door, and let it pass by. We have that to fund. That was coming upon us even as we were having difficulty paying the bills that we had before in the normal pre-COVID time. So now we're in an election campaign. And last night I had the misfortune or the good fortune to see the UNC advertisements on the television. All of a sudden they wake up and they have plan. They have plan. They have plan. So as to let me see this plan that they have. Because last election, as they were buying these boats and doing all these kinds of deals, they launched upon the country something called the blue economy and the silver economy and the white economy and the gray economy when it was all the yellow economy. And of course, when I looked at it, it's a whole series of descriptions of what they will do with money. And in some instances, they didn't mean money, just it was magic. They were going to reopen Caroni Limited and start to produce cane again. They're going to, no, we are having difficulty raising money to pay the bills that we have and to pay your salary and so on and so on. They're going to create funds, F-U-N-D-S, you know, pools of money. Create these pools of money by the billions of dollars, and these billions of money, magic money, child plating, will suddenly fund the economy to create 50,000 jobs. They had no interest in creating jobs by doing those things when they had the treasury and money in the treasury and the cabinet to make decisions to give you jobs, you know. One man just got a job there as an agent, he got $177 million. Their favorite contractors, some building house with Ponkin in Tobago, some building Prime Minister house in Trinidad, them get $400 million in 4 weeks. That $549 million is approximately almost $20 million a week going to those fellas. They were not servicing Tobago on that scale. The service to Tobago was not being funded on that scale. But they were shoveling money out of the treasury in that way to their secret people. And now coming to tell you on television every night, going on Google and Googling sites of all kinds of nice things and telling you that is what they're going to be doing for you in plans and woke nation and putting you back. You are not a woke nation. You are a nation that has been abused by the UNC and the corrupt practice, had your money stolen, have your time wasted, and now they want to stand in the way of your defense and your further progress. You should be calling out for justice. You should be calling out for them to be identified by name, rank, and serial number. And you should be saying that they have no business anywhere in their public money. They have a plan. They always have a plan. Last night I was looking on in amazement. One of the big plans is that they will abolish property tax. Well, they have already abolished it. The last time property tax was paid in this country was 2009. When they came into office, up to that, from that day till now, nobody has ever paid property tax in this country. Billions of dollars going down the drain in an economy that needs every dollar to pay the nurses, the doctors, to build the hospital, and to build what we're building now. To look after the roads, that they talk about the roads, and to give you water. No property tax. That is them. So that is the big point. Because they figure if you hear about abolition of tax, you will run and vote for them because you want to live in this country and don't pay tax. Ladies and gentlemen, the money that the government spends on you and your children and your grandmother and everything we do here is from taxes we collect in one form or another, which is then spent on you, including keeping you in a job. So they're not only going to abolish the tax that they already abolished, but they're going to reduce income tax. Ladies and gentlemen, you are already experiencing significant reduction in income tax under this government. When we came into office, if you were earning $5,000 a month or less, you paid no tax. So 12 by 5, that was $60,000 of your income was tax-free. We, in a difficult period, we raised it to leave more money in your hand. We said we'll put that level at $6,000 a month. 6,000 by 12, that is $72,000. So now under this government, if you are earning $72,000 or less, you pay no tax. This irresponsible woman is saying that she's going to reduce tax. Corporation tax is at 25% nominally. But when they finish doing the books and making all the claims and doing whatever they do, the economist tells us the real tax that is actually paid is about 18%. In a time when you need every dollar to run the country, to maintain and to help us to do what we have to do to keep you going forward or even standing in the same place, because you can go backwards. She is talking about reducing corporation tax and accusing this government of being tax crazy. And we go after tax. We use taxation responsibly. We raise the income tax on the banks from 25% to 30% because we said in this season and in this period, everybody has to contribute, and we asked the banks to pay a little bit more because the banks were doing so much better than everybody else. And having taxed the banks at 30%, the banks are still reporting increased profits, so the taxation has not been a problem for the banks. She is now coming and say, put her into office and she will give back the banks the money the government is taking now to service you. And of course, she is saying that all of these things will be done without money. Without money. But I'm saying to you here today, especially you in Tobago, where the vast majority of workers in Tobago are on the government payroll. If you all fall for the folly of those persons who are giving you that kind of world talk for political purposes only, and you make the mistake of allowing them to do what they're saying they're going to do, you are the next candidate for the International Monetary Fund. And when she takes you to the International Monetary Fund, they would leave you and go and meet the money wherever they have it. And you would be without a job, and without an opportunity, and without the future that the PNM is building for you here in Tobago and Trinidad. Because you only have to look at what they're talking about and asking yourself, where and when did they get these ideas? How come these ideas were not available to us when they were in office? They're speaking about agricultural land, 25,000 acres of agricultural land for farming purposes under this arrangement. Ask them to point to you 2 acres of land that was cultivated under their 5-year stewardship. They can't show you because they had no interest in that kind of thing now, but they believe that they could write that up now in a fancy brochure or on a fancy video program and put it to you, and you will think that they have ideas. The only ideas that they have is how in God's name we're going to escape the authorities who are now onto us in the way that I have described tonight. How are we going to escape? Because that is their primary objective. And if they're so concerned about their own personal position, then they have no time to think about nothing about you and your future. They are devoid of ideas. In Tobago, we have there's a description of a bodily function called belly work, right? That's where they are, right? You see, you need to be serious. You need to be disciplined. And you have been serious, and you have been disciplined. And that is why Tobago's future is secure. The name of this country is Trinidad and Tobago. There's a general election, and not for the first time, this political party that wants to govern Trinidad and Tobago refuses to identify itself in Tobago. That should tell you all you need to know. Maybe after I speak tonight, they may try to come to Tobago and have a meeting for the sake of saying that that is not true. They have taken no interest in Tobago on top of the table. The only interest they have in Tobago is the interest they make with Watson Duke. And the more he tells them that he's winning the 2 Tobago seats, is the more the money he's getting. because they believe in that foolishness. But Watson Duke will not be the first Tobagoan who was misled by the media or by persons in Trinidad who thought they had supported Tobago, because come August 10th, I have every confidence that the vast majority of Tobagoans will vote for Tobago's future. So let them play their games. Let them play their games. Disrespect you. Imagine a general election. You talking about you up years ago to win the election. You would not put up a candidate in Tobago. You know why? Because of how you treat Tobago and how you see Tobago. Your party's logo, your party's name, and your party's color will not win even a dog catcher position in Tobago. You know that? So the only option available to you is to find some Tobagoan who will masquerade on some trumped-up Tobago issue, like influence of government that he's masquerading on, or something he knows nothing about. And the objective is to deceive you, to entrap you. I could say tonight, without fair contradiction, Watson Duke is the UNC agent in Tobago. Watson Duke is running for the UNC in Tobago. They discuss their business on a regular basis. They meet and they discuss it on a regular basis. They conduct their financing on a regular basis. So he could fool himself and his handful of followers. But he can't fool me, because I have a good idea and good information as to who my political opponents are and who they represent. In Tobago, Watson Duke is the UNC. But we in the PNM, we don't have to hide from our name. We don't have to hide from our history, because it's all good there. It's all good where we are, because we are open to all the people in Trinidad and Tobago. In this, our 65th year, since this party was formed in 1956, we have never had to hide behind anybody in any part of this country. We have put up a candidate in every election, whether it's a general election, it's a local election, a THA election, a by-election. We stand proudly with our candidates and our name, our symbol, and our color, and the population knows that red is the PNM, the Balize is our symbol, and Trinidad and Tobago is our destination. So in this election, there are 41 constituencies. We are fighting all 41 as we always do. We have 41 outstanding candidates, many of them very experienced, some of them shorter in experience, some brand new, some old like me, some young, and some will always get old, because none of us getting any younger. But Trinidad and Tobago always needs the people's national movement. So you know what you know. You know where your interest lies. You know what you have to do. You know where your responsibility is, because to be disciplined is to be responsible. Because the next thing they will tell you, if you're not coming out to vote for them, they give them money to stay home. To not come out to vote is to indicate that you are available for their deals and their foolishness. To come out to vote is to say, I want to take a stand on what is good and right for Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago. And when you come out to vote to choose the PNM candidate, you're saying, I want to be a part of the decision making in Trinidad and Tobago. It is crystal clear in Tobago. So I leave you tonight, fully confident that come rain or come shine, on the 10th of August, in Tobago East, you will resoundingly select and elect the candidate for the PNM in Tobago East, Mrs. Ayana Webster-Roy. And as you move from the east to the west, those of you operating in the west, those of you voting in the west, you go to the polling stations, you take a stand, you vote for the PNM candidate, and your candidate is Sampa Kojo of the People's National Movement. Our symbol is the Balize. Our destination is Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago. Our future is your future, your children's future. It's a difficult time. Tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. So when I see you again, it will be after I've heard you shouting from Charlottesville to Bonaccord, from Mason Hall to Castara, from Scarborough to Mount St. George. I'll hear you across the channel shouting on the night of August 10th, great is the PNM, Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and Tobago is PNM. Thank you and good night.
Choice every time, still a job to be done and a race to be won, and we know we will win every time. Just give me faith, heads up high. We're together in this, you and I. Yes, the job will be done.
Well, after a speech like that, I wonder if I should even come and say closing remarks. We should probably just go with that, shouldn't we? Well, we won't do that this time, all right? We want to thank our political leader and Prime Minister, the visionary Dr. Keith Rowley. Let's give him a hand once again. For those of you at home, if you're still a bit iffy, if you're honest with yourself, you will admit that this is the right choice. The People's National Movement. This is the right leader. This is the right time. And on August the 10th, we want you all to go out in your numbers and take your neighbor that you're not even talking to. Take them to the polls, observe all the health regulations that are put in place to protect you, and put your X by the balize, and at the end of it all, let us all say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall indeed prevail. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Get home safely, and see you again soon.
All will be fine. Look, we made the right choice every time. Still a job to be done and a race to be won, and we know we will win every time. Just give me faith, heads up high. We're together in this, you and I. Yes, the job will be done and the race will be won, and we know we will win every time. And we go vote for the love of we country. We go vote to protect the treasury. Vote, it's only Dr. Rowley, the right choice for TNT. All will be fine. Look, we made the right choice every time. Still a job to be done and a race to be won, and we know we will win every time. Just give the faith, heads up high. We're together in this, you and I. Yes, the job will be done and the race will be won, and we know we will win every time. And we go vote for the love of we country. We go vote to protect the treasury. Vote, it's only Dr. Rowley, the right choice for TNT. PNM is the choice, PNM is the voice, PNM all the way on election day is the right choice at the right time. Hands in the air for the balies, hey. Introducing my friend, the General, I Sasha, be voting PNM. Anyway, right choice, proud leader, the battle for our nation, your life matter, yeah. Real leadership, yo, we promise you forever, wow. Vote PNM and everything will be much better, yeah. Strength and honor in 5 years of government. Never again will we allow mismanagement. PNM is here to stay, their love is permanent. Loyal to the flag and never bound to establishment. Who them try if trick and sell out, but them care by my vote, me not bow out. Them better move when we're the army, I run out. Only see